Let's go ahead and get started. I'll go first since I'm already talking and moving my mouth. I am Jennifer Johnson. I am the Library Advancement Assistant here at the Department of Libraries. I've been working with the Summer Programming Grant, formerly the Summer Performer Grant, since I started working here almost 6 years ago. So program has definitely evolved a lot over the past 6 years, but I think it's one of the most fun things we offer to libraries, and we're excited to talk to you about it today. And I will pass it over to Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan Clark. I am the Youth Services Consultant of Vermont Department of Libraries. And yeah, we are excited to once again be able to offer the grant to libraries to support all of you in all of your hard work, and especially in your programming during the summer. And we're excited that we've been able to sort of expand the scope of how you're able to use the funds, as well as being able to increase it slightly this year, which is we're glad we're able to do. Yeah, Lucy.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lucy Fortier. I just joined the Department of Libraries in December. Prior to that, I was with the IT and Office of Purchasing Contracting for the state. So I'm fairly new and look forward to working with you and all the libraries, and I do appreciate all the good work you do. So this is a great experience.
Awesome. We're really happy to have Lucy on board helping with this grant this year. With so many folks applying and receiving this grant, which is awesome. There's definitely a lot of administrative work, and having Lucy here for help with that is just really important. And I think this is going to be the smoothest and best grant year we've had in a while. And I think after today's webinar, you will agree with us. So I'm going to share our little PowerPoint we have today. I also sent out the PDF of these slides yesterday in that email if you want to refer along, but these slides will be available. Well, they're already available on our grant page. But we're just going to go through these. Well, let me pull up the agenda page before I start talking about what we're going to do. So before we get started, summer reading 2022. That's what we're thinking about. The theme is oceans of possibilities. So we put this scary fish guy here to really get you in the mood for oceans of possibilities. And they're going to be oceans of possibilities for ways to spend this grant money. And yes, I know that was lame. That's okay.
No, it was perfect. Perfect.
We're going to go with it.
I love it.
So here's the agenda, the actual agenda page with this man saying welcome to you. So welcome. First thing on the agenda, we checked it off. We're going to do a basic overview of the grant. We're going to talk about the changes to this year's grant. There aren't many. It's very similar to last year, with the added bonus of it being able to give you $100 extra, which is really exciting. Then we'll do a review of the grant paperwork, like the application. We'll talk about the grant agreement and then reporting, and then there will be time for questions at the end. So yeah, and also in terms of questions, we're going to try and save them all to the end. So if you're afraid you're going to forget, feel free to pop your question in the chat and we'll make sure that we address it. But there will also be time at the end for you to turn your camera on and unmute yourself and ask it with your mouth if you want to. All right. So if you had a chance to read the grant guidelines, you had our whole spiel, but this summer grant, it used to be called the Summer Performer Grant. It's been going on for a very long time. A very nice rich lady named Elva Smith set up a fund for us here at the department, which we can use for youth services things. So we have always used Miss money for these grants. So it always has been for libraries to hire a performer to augment their summer program. Last year, we added the option of being able to purchase items for programming rather than just hiring a performer. So we changed the name of the grant to the Summer Programming Grant rather than the Performer Grant. You can absolutely still hire a performer if you'd like. But for folks, especially during these COVID times, if you're afraid of having, a large performance or something like that, you can purchase items to have smaller programs instead of having a big performer program. And we'll talk about what sort of items you might want to purchase a little bit later. Another thing in the past few years we've really encouraged libraries to do is collaborate with these grant funds. So either pulling funds to hire a performer you wouldn't normally be able to afford, and pooling all those funds and hiring somebody really awesome and having a joint program with other libraries, or all going in on an expensive piece of equipment that can go between different libraries and be shared, like a 3D printer or something like that. So
and we
really
saw a lot of great
yeah.
examples of that this last year of people collaborating, and we'll talk a little bit more about it later. But yeah, we saw a lot of libraries pooling their resources and having really amazing programs.
Yes, so we definitely encourage that. As I mentioned earlier, when I first started, we used to give, I think, $100. And then we were able to bump it up to $200. And this year we were able to give $300. So we're moving on up to the deluxe library in the sky with this grant program for you. And we're super excited to see how you decide to use your funds for this summer. Like Jonathan said, we were reading over your reports, and you have some really great ideas and really great collaborations. So we think this summer is going to be even better than ever. All right. So I'm going to let Jonathan talk about some of the ways you might want to spend your $300.
Yeah, so one thing I do want to say as we get into some of the specifics of how you can and how folks have used the money, is that this is to support you in doing summer programming. And up top, Jennifer mentioned the summer reading theme, which we have each year, which we use the CSLP theme. But I do want to emphasize that when using these funds, whether it's a program like where you're bringing in a performer, or whether you're purchasing items for a program that you were creating at your library, it does not have to be on theme. A lot of folks last year did things related to the Tails and Tales theme, animal theme, which is really great, and a lot of live folks were able to have programs where they brought live animals to the library. It might be a little bit harder to bring like a dolphin to your library, but it does not. This is to support your summer programming, and not everything that you do has to be directly related to that theme. And as far as like reporting, that is not part of it. So I just wanted to make sure to address that. So again, as Jennifer mentioned in the past, this has been specifically for performers, and that is still how a lot of libraries choose to use their funds. And so there is a lot of great local performers. I'm not going to go through all the options, but again, last year, one of the big things that we saw was the STEM, nature, live animals. There was a lot of great ones, a lot of museums, nature centers that libraries worked with to bring in programs to libraries. So that is really a great option. And then as far as purchasing programming materials, again, it's pretty open. You will need to, again, think about how that's going to support your summer programming, but part of it is that you can you might just purchase like craft materials that you use once, but we also want to encourage, as Jennifer mentioned, the idea of getting sort of evergreen objects that you can purchase, that you can use for summer programming, and then you can, in your reporting, let us know how it was used, but then you can also use it throughout the year and hopefully in summers to come. So that is one thing that you do. So we know that there has, again, in the last couple of years, some libraries have offered really amazing virtual programs. So that is one use that you could do, is to bring in virtual programs, and then also purchase licenses, things related, hardware, cameras, the OWL cameras, things that you need for those programs. That is something that you could purchase. One thing I will mention here is that, obviously for those who've done it before, your purchase can be more than $300, but the library would need to supplement that cost if it was something that was, more than that. One thing that we know, again, we mentioned CSLP, and we provide, most of you have, hopefully you have received, you're able to order your incentives that we, through CSLP, your bookmarks and all of that good stuff, posters and all of that stuff. So, but obviously it's not everything. So you can use those funds to purchase additional CSLP items that are available, t-shirts and other things that we're not able to send every library. So you could use them for that. And then again, we mentioned the evergreen items, the button makers, instant cameras, things related to STEM programming, robotics, 3D printers, musical instruments, games, so many ideas. Again, none of this is a comprehensive list. And in any of that, if you have questions about how to use these funds, you can reach out to me directly. We'll talk about who to talk to about things related to the grant. But if you have questions about like just how to spend the money, you can reach out to me directly and we'll figure out some ways that we'll talk through some ways that you can use it.
Before I switch the slide, Jonathan, I just want to have a note about the movie licenses here at the bottom. So
yeah, I was going to let you talk about that.
Sure. So we had a meeting with Swank, and when y'all renew your public library performance licenses with us in the spring, that new license for 2022, 2023, at least for the rest of 2022, you will be able to show select films outside on library property for free. You have to like submit a form with the date and everything like that, and Swank will approve it. But you don't have to pay any money. It's included in your license. So when we say movie licenses here, we mean for films that you want to show off library property. If you wanted to have it on the town green or something like that and go in with your rec department, then you could use your grant funds for something like that. But if you are just showing a movie on your library's property, and it must be on your library's property outside, that is included with your license. Again, you just have to fill out a little form. And the selection of movies isn't like infinite. You'll have to get like approval for a certain movie, but it's still a really good selection of movies. Am I still sharing the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I have like two screens now and it's like confusing me a little bit.
Yeah, no, I know it gets tricky. But yes, we're seeing it.
Okay, so in line with this grant money, we wanted to share some of the items that we spent that were purchased last year, and I'm gonna have to stop sharing and reshare, I think, because it's not letting me move on to the next slide here. Okay.
So while you're pulling that up, yeah, there was, and I think we'll have time at the end too to answer questions, but we might also, if any of you, especially those who purchased items, or if you pooled money worked with other libraries or organizations to pool for programming, we would like to hear about that when we open up for questions too. So if you want to think about, we're obviously not going to go through all the ways and all the things that were purchased, but just a few things that we saw when looking through the reporting, some really cool ideas. So so one of on the bottom there, the Cricut machines was a really popular purchase. For those of you who aren't familiar with them, they do lots of stuff. They're pretty cool. They are used a lot for displays or craft making. You can cut out letters. You can cut out images that can be used for displays or various things. You know, again, you just need to be able to think about how you can talk about how this supported your programming, but it's pretty open. So that is one thing that a lot of folks use. The button makers are really awesome. Those are great great for teen programs and for all ages. Those, again, if you want to talk to me about button makers, I'm happy to do that. And I know that other folks would be happy to do that too. There are a few different companies. And they have ones that are, one thing is that they have used a lot for team programs because they have the pokey back needle on it, but they also make magnetic backs that you can use for younger kids. And it really is something that it appeals to everyone. They're super cool and super fun, and again, something that is evergreen that you can continue to use, although you would need to buy the supplies. One other really creative way that was used is a library purchased a bunch of these little digital cameras, which are amazingly cheap these days. I think they got them for $11 or something each. These little digital cameras that are sort of meant for kids that have kind of a plasticky coating on the outside. And then they had them take pictures, and then they used that to do a 3D animation program using the photographs that were that the kids took. So that was just one super creative, cool way of using the funds. And then again, they have those cameras that they can use for programming in the future. So those are just a few of the awesome things that folks bought last year.
I'm having trouble again. I'm so sorry,
No worries.
everybody. It was doing really well. It's
no worries.
It's stuck on my screen on the big monitor, but it's not stuck.
It's always something.
Oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna close out of this and then open it again. My huge apologies to everybody for the inconvenience. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so you're gonna share some considerations with us?
Yes. Well, I don't have should I pull up the PowerPoint? I was just.
Oh shoot, it's not sharing?
It's not, I'm not seeing it. No, sorry. That's why I was I didn't pull it up separately.
Okay.
I don't know what's happening.
I have no idea what's happening either.
Now I'm seeing it.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody.
Sorry. Okay.
Yes.
Can you see it now?
Some considerations. Yes, I can.
Okay, sorry.
No worries. So again, if you want to think about performer, when we talk about performer, it's also that includes authors and speakers, sort of fall within that performer. again, we have mentioned a lot of times about collaboration, but that is a good way to go, especially if it costs a little bit more money, and especially for something like a virtual program that you could make available to multiple libraries at the same time, or if there's like if there's a couple libraries in an area and you can cross promote a program that's happening in like a park or something. There's been a lot of great examples of that. And as far as performers, there is a link there. There was a website that was updated that has been updated over the years with the various performers. That is no longer being updated there's a few different reasons for that. It's seen partly as a conflict of interest for the state to, although we are not directly promoting those, it is sort of a little bit of a gray zone as far as that goes, and it's just a lot of work to keep that up. But what had been put together, and Jennifer can talk about it too, but what was there is still available, and there is also a programming list through VLA. There's not a lot there right now because you need to submit the performers to it. So if you wanted that to be more robust, you would need to use, and we can share that out too, but that right now doesn't have a lot on it. But I know that just even on the listserv, y'all are pretty good about sharing performers with each other. And then as far as purchasing programming materials, again, the list is not exhaustive at all. It's pretty open, and receipts, receipts are annoying but necessary, so you will need to keep the receipts, and we'll get into how to submit all that stuff later. And reporting is annoying but necessary, but again, it's pretty just, think about what programs were supported by what you purchased, and think about how you might be able to capture numbers for that in a small way. So, we know that you were all very creative, and that is why we really want to give you the options to use this money in as many ways as possible to do what works for you and your communities.
Awesome. Yeah, what Jonathan said about the Performer WordPress site, it is not being updated anymore. I will not add anything else to it, but you can see previous entries in there. But we really also want you to think about purchasing items. So don't get stuck in like performer mode 100%. Like definitely consider both options, and then obviously still welcome to hire a performer if you want one.
Yeah,
but
and
don't
again,
forget
working
about those
with
items.
Yeah, and again, we're working with, which is not exactly a performer, but working with like museums and other, organizations that do outreach rather than like an individual performer is also a really great way to go.
Yes, agreed. So that's an overview of the grant and some ideas for purchasing items or hiring a performer with your funds. Now we're going to go into the more logistical points of applying for the grant, what happens after you are approved, all of that sort of stuff. So we're going to actually go into the application and look at it live. So this will be available right after the webinar is over for you all to start filling out. You should do it in one sitting, so you want to make sure you have your W-9 and certificate of insurance ready to upload. And as we go through the application, you'll see some of the other pieces of information that you'll need. It's very similar to what has been asked in the past. But actually for this grant, we're asking for less information than usual on the grant. So we were able to streamline it quite a bit. So I am going to stop sharing the PowerPoint, and I am going to first show you the grant page. Let me just pull it up here. before I start sharing again. All right, so this is our 2022 summer programming grant page. And you're seeing that, Jonathan?
Yep, we are seeing it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is the 2022 summer programming grants page. This link has also been at the bottom of all these slides, and I put it in the email yesterday. So this is your one-stop shop for everything related to this grant. After this webinar, the link to the application will be hyperlinked here. It's just not up yet because we were waiting until after the webinar. You'll find our grant guidelines and virtual performance guidelines linked here. We ask that you read this grant guidelines document thoroughly before it's a PDF. You read it thoroughly before you start working on the application. It has mostly all the information we've talked about already in terms of what you can purchase, but we just really want everyone to be on the same page. So please read these grant guidelines before starting to work on the application. And this is where you'll find a link to the reporting form, which is not available yet, but when it is, it will be up here. The slides are already up, and then when we can get the recording up, it will also be linked here, and then it will also have all of your important dates to remember below. So definitely bookmark this page. And then if you need to get back to our general summer reading program info page, you can click on this link here. So I'm going to pull up the application now for us to look at. I didn't want to do it before because I was afraid it was going to time out. Okay. So
Thanks,
for those
Jennifer.
of you who might have worked, I haven't shared it yet.
No, I know. I know that switching all between all these things is a pain.
Yeah, and my big monitor is still frozen on the PowerPoint, so I'm having to like work on this little screen.
Yeah.
It's not a good tech day. So for those of you who did the ARPA grant,
Oh, yeah, we can
you'll see that the application looks very similar, but you will have some, this is page 1. When you click on the link, this is where it will take you. It has some of the grant guidelines pulled out from that PDF I just mentioned, but please read that grant guidelines document before completing the application. There are lots of reminders for you here, and it is linked a bunch of different places, so definitely do that. It just has some of the more pertinent items right here on the first page. It also tells you the information that you should have on hand before you get started with the grant. I hope you know your library name, but you'll need things like your tax ID number, DUNS or UEI number. So they're switching over from DUNS to this new UEI number. And we can provide more information about that if necessary. But for now, if you don't have, I think a UEI is automatically issued to people who have DUNS. But Lucy can speak more on that later if we need to. So you'll need a W-9, certificate of insurance, all that same kind of stuff, some legalese, grant requirements, and then just a reminder about the reporting. So read over this page, read over the grant guidelines, gather all the information and documents you'll need before getting started. But if you still have questions, we have an email set up specifically for this grant so that Jonathan and Lucy and I can all work together on answering your questions, and it just doesn't go to one individual person. So we will, this grant email is everywhere at this point, but we will share it out again. So if you have questions, please email this grant email. All right, let's continue and see this next page. So this is all pretty self-explanatory. You're going to select your library name. Today, I'm going to be the Aldrich because they are right down the street from us. I don't know whether or not they are a municipal library. Doesn't matter. I'll use our VTLIB address. You're going to fill it out with all of this kind of stuff. So you're going to need the director's full name, an email address. And then if there is a youth librarian, we would like that information as well. And if you put both of these email addresses in, the confirmation email after you submit the application will go to both emails. So your director will have a copy and then the youth librarian will have a copy. And then we just ask for you to let us know who the primary point of contact for this grant will be. You know, so we're asking if we have any questions, we're asking the right person. The library director is always going to be the one to sign off on the grant agreement. So for those sort of like paperwork things, they'll be sent to the library director. But for other logistical things, it just helps to know who we should be talking to. So I'm going to say the youth librarian is the primary point of contact. Again, this is all standard stuff. We're going to ask for your EAN, your tax ID, your DUNS number or your UEI number, the registered name. I'm going to say it's the Aldrich Public Library because I don't know. And then the fiscal end year month. And so if you are under your town, your municipal library, you should be using your town's, EIN, your town's DUNS number, your town's registered name, your town's fiscal year end, all that kind of stuff. Same stuff as the ARPA, the grants, if you had worked on those before. We're going to continue. So this is really more grant specific questions. So on this line here, we're going to ask you, like, what do you plan on using your funds for? What you put here isn't like legally binding set in concrete. If you fill out the application and you decide that what you want to do isn't going to work, it's okay to change as long as it's, something still eligible. But please just let us know if you decide to change to something else. But we're going to say after looking at the grant guidelines that we want to get a Cricut machine. And we're going to do a program for teens with it. We're going to make fun summer crafts with teens. So if it's not one of those other, these age group options, you can just specify here. And we are not going to collaborate with another library on this project. So we don't have to fill out this. And then we're going to talk about strategies for promoting the performance. So we'll say we're going to tell people about on Front Porch Forum, on Instagram, on our team page, and library website. So very basic questions about the grant, what you're thinking about using your funds for, which age groups will you do programming with, are you going to collaborate with another library? If so, you can write the name of the libraries here and then how you're going to promote your program to get people to come. And then we're going to continue. So here is where you're going to upload your current W-9. Signed within the last 6 months. So we're going to use this random file I have here in my downloads. And these are required questions, so you will have to have all of these ready to submit before you move forward. And the application's not due until March 14th, so you have about a month to gather everything and submit the application. All right, so we've uploaded our documents. And then you will have a chance to review everything that you've submitted. And if you want to change something, you could go back and edit. You will have an opportunity on this page to print everything that is here. You don't need to do that because you're going to get all of your answers emailed to you in the confirmation email after you submit, but you can print from this page if you want. But don't forget to check this box here. I agree the above information is correct and ready to submit, and press submit. Because if you do not press that submit button, your application is not going to go through. And once you have successfully submitted, you will get this confirmation page, and you will also get an email with copies of your answers at the emails you put in at the beginning of the application. So until you see this page, you have not fully submitted the application yet. And you will get a confirmation email. So make sure you get that confirmation email. But that is the application. You can see it's very simple. Just gather all of your information ahead of time, and it should only take you about 5 minutes to go through the application. And this, again, will be available right after this webinar is over.
Thank you. Yeah, we hope that this is really going to make the whole process much simpler.
All right, I am going to bring up the PowerPoint again if I can get it to work. I don't know why I continue to have so much trouble with this.
Well, between Teams and PowerPoint.
Okay, so I talking about the W-9 and the certificate of insurance. I'm just going to leave it in this view because I'm afraid it's going to like kick me out again. Please refer to the slides if you want to that were sent out. But this is, you know, a W-9. If you did one for ARPA, it's exactly the same. Just make sure, you know, you're going, if you're a municipal library, you're going to have your town on one line and then your library's name on the other. Lucy, did you want to talk about the W-9?
Sure.
Okay.
One of the key things about the W-9 is this is probably the most important part, is it has to be a physical signature as opposed to electronic signature. It's impossible to, in this way, to verify that signature. As for the rest of the form, as Jennifer has highlighted, those sections are important. If you are going to handwrite and not type, please make it in block letters and as legible as possible. It's very important that you have your, I can't see what that thing, the employer identification number. That's critical. And we need this, we need to verify this every year, every time. And I know that some of you are going, well, didn't I just submit this 3 months ago? We have to make sure that the Vision, which is our accounting software for the state, is up to date. If there's been an address change or anything of that nature, we verify against that information, and that's the way we get the funds to you. So that's the reason we're asking for it again. And the signature, I can't stress enough, it has to be, you know, what do they call that? I can't remember. I'm Canadian. A John Hancock, is that what it is?
Yeah,
John Hancock.
Handwritten signature.
Is there a Canadian version of that?
We really recommend that you fill out, you type in this information here, type everything out except the signature, because if anything even is slightly illegible, the W-9 is going to be rejected, and it just makes the whole process really a pain. So I would definitely recommend typing it in. If you have one that's dated within the last 6 months, already ready to go, then you could just use that. Yeah. So you probably already have this on file. All right, so certificate of insurance is the other thing you'll need to upload just within the past year. So let's talk about the agreement. So the process is, once you submit your application, those will close on March 14th. Lucy steps in to do her magic work. She's just going to make sure that you meet all of the grant requirements as set by the state and you're eligible. And once you are approved for your grant, you'll get a little packet with an award letter, all that kind of stuff. And your library director will get the grant agreement via email in this program called Docusign, which is we're going to talk about on the next slide. The grant agreement is a little longer than in previous years, but we just need to be compliant with the state and make sure everything is in there. So Lucy can tell you a little bit about some of the sections in the grant and just don't be intimidated when you look at it. It's all the same information as before. It's just formatted a little bit differently. So I don't know if you wanted to talk about some of these sections, Lucy.
Yeah. So previously, the state has some rigid guidelines as to what we need to put in an agreement. And in the previous years, there may have been that language, or it may have been shortened. And now with the influx of grant money into the state, we are now obligated to maybe elaborate a little bit more. So the grant agreement getting, you'll look at it and go, oh my God. And basically it's taking whatever is in the guidelines that Jennifer has put together and just put it in a formatted section. It's just really clear of what your options of what you can do with the money. And then as well, what are the expectations that you needed for after the grant to send in your receipts and the reporting, and why is it necessary? It also, we've gone into more details into what we call the performance measures. And a performance measure they're very simple. It's simply meeting the deadlines that we've outlined. There's also that on the first page of the agreement. Another section that looks a little longer than previous years is the payment provisions. We want to be really clear with you in attachment B, what we're going to send to you, how you're going to get it, and what are the obligations that you have to meet them in order to be a successful applicant. Well, the section previous was the performance measures. Did you sign on time? Did we get your application? And all it is just really make it into a clear format, step by step. So although it's got a few more pages, I think that the clarity is there, and it just reinforces every other document, the application that you filled out, the guidelines. And we felt that we just needed to make sure that everybody was on the same page. So that's pretty much it. The other part I want to just talk a little bit about is the certificate of insurance. We know that the majority of them are from the Vermont League's cities and towns, and we need the one for the current year. Just please make sure to check the dates. And that's all I got.
Awesome, Lucy. Thank you so much. So as mentioned on this slide, the library director will receive the grant agreement electronically via email through a program called Docusign. And outlined here is our instructions for when you receive that email. So just, if you receive an email from Docusign, sometimes people will email us and be like, is this spam? Like, no, this is the grant agreement. We'll send out a warning email maybe before to let you know that the grant agreements are going to be on the way and that you can expect it. But if you get something from Docusign, that is from us. It is your grant agreement, and the library director will need to sign off on it. And if you have any other questions about that, you can email Lucy.
If I could just say something, Docusign is going to, you're going to get this email, and if you aren't familiar with it, it's going to have a big green box, and you click on that link. It is safe to click on that. You don't have to create a Docusign login. You don't need one. The link will bring you right there. But Docusign does ask you to set up your signature, which is kind of cool because you can pick all kinds of different fonts on how you want your signature to appear. And it's just following the steps, and it's safe. It is not spam. It is not bringing you to a site that that you're giving away information you shouldn't be. It'll say the state of Vermont. It'll be, like I said, this big green box. And that's all that's required. No login. You don't have to do that. I just want to be clear. At the end, when everybody has signed off on the agreement, so the director, your library director signs, and then the state signs, and you'll get another email, or whomever will get another email, and that will say you can now download the fully executed documents. Again, does not require a login. It's pretty simple. And I think it's kind of cool that you can pick the font for your signature. Yeah.
And once you get those documents downloaded, if it's just going to the library director, library directors, please share those documents with your youth librarian. You will find your grant number on the grant agreement and all that kind of stuff you will need for reporting. We always have people who can't find their grant number. It's all in the grant agreement and they just never get it because it goes to the library director. So please make sure those documents are shared with everyone who is working on this grant so that everybody has the information they need to be successful. So once your library director signs the grant agreement, again, like Lucy said, you'll get a fully executed copy, which means that we've also signed off here on VTLIB. And then once those will be due to be signed, I believe in April 11th. And then once May 15th rolls around, you should have your money by then and you'll be able to start spending it. The spending period is May 15th to September 15th. And that's when you should also be holding any programs associated with the grant within that time frame. So May 15th to September 15th, spend the money, have your program, you're all set. We will leave you to it.
So Jennifer,
after you, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Before I forget, I just wanted to address the UEI. That change
Sure.
is going into effect in April. So some of them, you may see it with your DUNS number. It may already be appearing. If not, because we're doing our registration now, it isn't going to affect us. It will starting in April, though, April 2022.
So since the application closes in March, so that is before April, if you submit a DUNS number, you'll be fine. But yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Lucy. So then, okay, September 15th, spending is over. Your program is over. It's time to do your reporting. So we do have a slide about that. There's going to be a web form that is kind of like similar to the application form where you're going to upload everything. So you are going to upload any relevant receipts to that form, any photos from the event, and any, by advertisements we mean like promotional things like social media graphics that you had, and like if you put in the newspaper, stuff like that. And there will be a narrative and questions about how many people attended your program, what you did, all of that kind of good stuff here. It's all going to be uploaded via the web form. So no more emailing us with all your stuff. You're not gonna snail mail it to us, so it's all gonna be uploaded on the web form. And if you don't have a scanner in your library, you can use a smartphone to scan. We have some things here to tell you if you need to get your receipts onto your computer and uploaded into the web form. But more information will be coming about reporting later. Obviously, that is a really long way away right now, and we really want you to focus on your application and getting all of that stuff ready to go. But this reporting form, when it comes out, it will be due by October 15th. So that's the same date as last year. And again, if you have all of your materials gathered, that should only take you about 5 or 10 minutes to do. All right, so that's it with the paperwork. We wanted to just highlight some of these important dates. Today is February 16th. Woohoo! We have hit the first date on the timeline here. Once this info session is over, we'll say by noon, that link to the application will be linked on the grant page. And you can start working on that. Your applications are going to be due on March 14th. And then your grant agreement will be sent out probably around the beginning of April. And you will have until April 11th to sign your grant agreement and all that good stuff. Once May 15th rolls around, you should have your money and you'll be able to start spending your money, having programs, all that kind of good stuff. And then you will be required to turn in the reporting form by October 15th. So that is the big overview. Before we go into the questions, I'm just going to go through this last little form here so I can stop sharing the PowerPoint. So again, most questions pertaining to the grant should be sent to this general grants email so that Lucy and Jonathan and I can answer them together. And then if it's a question just in general about summer reading programs, you can send those directly to Jonathan. And then just some quick reminders before we go into questions. We have our LIB Youth Services, which is our Youth Services listserv. If you aren't signed up for it, we really encourage you to do so. You can go to this link here, and then I'll have Josh sign you up. If you are already on the VTLIB listserv, you were automatically signed up for this and you should be receiving those emails. But if you weren't ever signed up for VTLIB, please sign up for this. I get a couple people, every week, so I'm sure most of you are already signed up, but if you aren't, please do. This is where all of the updates and reminders about this grant are going to be sent. And then we wanted to remind you about our general summer reading workshops about the entire program are going to be held March 8th and 10th, both days from 1 to 3 p.m. You can register and find more information about those on our CE page. Yeah, so let's get into some questions now, if there are any.
There's already a few in the chat.
Okay, great.
So the first question was about a specific one about using grant money to charter a bus to a museum. Which I mean, as far as from our end, anyone else, anyone else can speak to it, but I don't know why that would be. Like, I think that would be fine as far as reporting. I mean, obviously, there are potential liability issues on the library end.
That's why I was going to say I would really think that's not a good idea because of the liability issues. I would not spend my money in that way.
But again, it depends on your policies at your library and what. Yeah, but yes. So I would be thoughtful about that for that reason.
You would also have to check your certificate of insurance and see how much coverage you would get.
That's the thing about that.
Getting a bus. It isn't owned by the library, so that's a consideration, as well as it's the liability that the auto libraries. So it's not like an automotive, like it may or may not be covered. There is a risk factor there, and obviously in terms of the state, for us, that risk would be transferred mostly to the library that would be renting this bus. What I would say also, if you do have to do that, your receipt should be a lump sum, not, what other fees may be involved, or if there's additional insurance that you'll have to procure. You may exceed your $300 very quickly just on getting the bus.
Yeah, one thing I would explore is if that museum that you were thinking about taking folks to, if they do any kind of an outreach, whether it's on their website or not, I would talk to them and see if basically they can bring the museum to you and bring an outreach program, and then that would be a better way to go about that.
The purpose of this grant was really to have stuff at the library and communities rather than taking people away from the communities. So the programs you spend the money on should really be at the library, and you avoid all of those liability things. So for Hannah, I can answer this quickly. Will Docusign automatically go to the director? Yes, it will go to the director. Only the director is authorized to sign the grant agreement, so they will get it. Nobody else is authorized to sign the grant agreement.
And if I can add, if you put two names on the application, Docusign does allow to have a person, let's say there's two names, so the director is going to sign. That's a given. the state will sign. Then after that, the package or the grant is now executed, it's complete. If we have, of course, the certificate of insurance and all that, which at that point we will. It also allows, if there's a second name, which could be the person at the library, not necessarily the director, they also can be added an extra email where they would get a copy of the package as well. So if there's 2 email addresses, it's most likely going to be a shared task between Jennifer and I. It's just one more name and email, not a problem. If it's there, we can accommodate.
Yeah. I can do these last 2 before we have about 3 minutes left, so we want to be mindful of time. Will there be a PDF of the application available so we can pre-fill it before we actually apply? I don't have that at the moment. Everything that you'll need is listed on that first page of the application, so I don't really think you'll need it. It's such a short application. And
you could always sort of go through it the way that Jennifer did. Like,
yeah,
you could
and
sort
just
of like,
you don't have to submit it right away.
You have to fully submit it just to see what fields are there.
Yeah. And then, so the list of Swank movies, they're really, you're making me divulge the industry secrets. So there isn't really a list anymore. Swank was having to like keep updating a list of these outdoor movies, and they're like, we can't keep doing this. It's crazy. So, most likely the movie you want to show, as long as if it's a movie that is covered under the Swank license, and y'all know how to look that up by now, then it's probably fine. Just submit the form and it will most likely be approved with the movie you want to show. But if it's not, they'll get back to you and have you select another movie. So there is no longer like a list of movies to choose from. So as long as it's covered by the Swank license, they will probably let you show it outside, but just submit the form and then it will be approved or not. And then you can, I would say that the ones that might not be approved are like super new releases. A lot of the times those are the ones that will kind of get like, but if it's not a super new release and it's covered by the license, like most likely it will be fine. So Cheryl, you had your hand up before. Did you have a question?
You can turn your mic on too if you want.
Yeah, you can turn your mic on. Cheryl Sloan. Okay, well, she knows to email me if she has, a question that we didn't address. Are there any other questions? We're at our end time right now. So we want to be mindful of time, but please, if you have any questions, you can email that grant email, and Jonathan or Lucy or I will get back to you as soon as we can. The application link I'm going to put on the website soon here. Let me go get a drink of water and all that kind of stuff. But like we'll say by noon.
Yeah,
by
well,
noon for sure. That application link will be on the grant page, and you can start filling it out and uploading it with all your stuff. Again, you have about a month to do that. But yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
So I'll send a follow-up email. Well, I really sent out everything in the email yesterday. If you need anything else, just email the grant email and we can let you know. And let's see. So any other last minute things? Put in the
just
chat.
Encourage you all to apply.
Yes, please. This is easy money.
We want to give this to every single library. That's the point of this. And spread the word too, if you know other libraries who may not have taken advantage of this in the past.
And being new to libraries, I'm really looking forward to what you guys are going to do with this money. I think this is just tremendously awesome what you do for your communities, and
they're going to do awesome things. They always do awesome things.
Yeah, it's just exciting.